lighting on? No. Interesting. Don't know what that means. Doesn't really seem to change much. Alright. I've had a tangerine. I had a drink of water. Living my best life. I think just a couple more minutes and this steel's gonna be ready to go. Who's in here with me right now? We got one person so far. Back on the live stream. Is that you, Rick? Nope. Alright. Okay, so the plan is to forge this steel down. I want to do at least one round horizontal against the flats before gently, while it's still hot, going against the edges and then finishing on the flats and then probably right back into the forge. I'm going to turn this this forge temp back up so we're super nice and hot. Just super hot. Let's see, what's the best way to do this? Probably just do this. See that left edge is pretty warm. I'm gonna flip it over, let it even out, and then we'll get to forging. Oops, accidentally muted myself. Steel real quick. Alright, let's show it again. Now you can see that hot side is on the right because it's a little bit brighter. So we want that left side to heat up now and match it a bit. Once it's done that, we'll get forging. Alright. Forging and taking video at the same time is tricky and time consuming. I'm learning. Started at 10, I guess it's only been a couple hours. Normally, I guess I wasn't ready to start welding until about 10:30 or almost 11 actually, huh? So, nah, probably about 10:30. Anyways, yeah, it's just time consuming. It's interesting. All right, that left side's coming up. I realized that my ISO tunes were still connected to the phone, so I didn't know if the microphone that you guys were picking up the audio from was either from the phone or from the ISO tunes. So I'm curious what your guys' thoughts are now on the audio. If it's better, worse, same. Anyways, okay, it's hot. I'm gonna squish it on the flats and then on the edge very gently to try to correct that curvature, and then on the flats again. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. Things seem to stay together nicely. Just realized I don't have my eye protection again. Let's go find that. Audio is much better. Ah, damn it. I should have checked that. I didn't. What's funny is I had the ISO tunes floating around, but I hadn't been wearing them for a couple days. But apparently they'd been on the whole time. Connecting to my phone. That's the quietest press ever. It's actually not. I think the microphone is doing some good isolation work. I hate the sound of the press. I mean, it's definitely not the loudest. I've been around louder presses for sure. But all right. You're probably noticing me brushing the steel, which is something I haven't talked about yet. Whenever the forged steel builds up, it gets really thick. Whenever you can, if you can, try to knock it off, because the more that gets shoved into the surface of your billet or your bar, no matter what phase you're in, even when you're forging a blade, if it builds up too much, it is gonna do some weird stuff to the pattern, or it's gonna be a pain to dig out and try to clean out. There's definitely a bit of a crevice in there that I'm fighting against a little bit. Remember, I want some width, but because I have to do this work to flatten it again, because Cash, I've heard those ones. Some I don't know who made yours, but I've heard some of those presses that just like, especially when you hit the limit. Some sound like steam whistles. Anyways, yeah, it's just, you want to get that forge scale up. So, and yeah, because I have to dress it and flatten it back out, I'm not really getting the width that I want, which is kind of concerning me, because I think that's going to affect the pattern that we ultimately end up making here today. So, yeah, I got to think about this, because this is becoming something I wasn't expecting. It's just to try to save the steel so it doesn't all fall apart more than anything. That's more important to me right now. I'm not trying to do any more long soaks either. I'm just trying to get that steel back up to a nice, get it back in the forge or back under the press and forging again. I just rotated it so that it can evenly heat up. And now, because of that last round, I feel a little bit more confident forging it on edge. So I'm going to put it back under the press. I'm going to start on edge and really try to work it down a bit. I think part of the potential issue with it cupping the way it is that I am forging so gently. And so there's a potential. It's hard to know where it's at right now, but if you forge it down dramatically, so like I said earlier, I don't do big compressions. Sometimes I do. There is an asterisk connected to that statement. Sometimes I do when I'm trying to get a particular type of material movement. Typically, I'm forging very gently, very evenly, all sides, but occasionally, to get a certain kind of movement, you have to compress it aggressively in a particular direction. But I'm not sure if I want to try that yet. Cash is saying that they have a Clark iron, and the loudest thing ever, I think I need to put some kind of shroud on the spindle. Yeah. Honestly, on mine, all the sound is coming from the power pack. if I could enclose this power pack, it would make such a difference. Even just like a little sheet metal shroud full of like insulation or soundboard or whatever, insulation board, that would make such a huge difference. A massive difference. Actually, what I really want to do is this power pack here. I'll show you actually. And I actually don't know why he didn't do this in the first place. But this power pack, all of that fits on the backside of the press. So all of it, like the same setup as it has out here on the front, it has on the back, the exact same. And this power pack fits the width of that area back there. And so I would love to eventually actually shove all that, like rotate that. Obviously I have to play with the linkage, but get that put back there and into a box to help isolate it, keep the sound away from me. And then I would have all of this front area to play with in regards to die storage and hot forging and tooling. And tongs or hammers or whatever. But I can't really do that right now because it's straddled, or this press straddles the power pack, when the power pack actually completely fits on the back side of this thing. It's kind of obnoxious that I didn't do that in the first place. So, but that's what we got. Okay. It's getting hot in here. I'll tell you what, not only is it hot outside, it's getting hot in here. I might have to go, oh, I don't have to go that far. I have an old blower from, it's like an old blower from like a bounce house. What's great about it is if I set it on the floor like this, the square base here, it shoots up at an angle and shoots me right in the face. Keeps me nice and cool. It does add to the sound of it, so holy crap, is that just so much better? Okay. Okay. Got most of it gotten down to almost to the bottom of that trench. And so what I'm going to do on this next compression, this looks like it's about 1.5 inches wide to me. So I'm gonna set a stop at 1.5 inches, and I'm gonna jam down and hope that this material will pooch out. So instead of staying puckered in, it'll upset the material. The material has to go somewhere. So the goal would be to make it pooch out from the center. Probably won't get 3-inch width that I'm wanting, but I think I'll be able to get at least 2 inches, ideally 2 inches. Before I get too close to that 2-inch by half, 2-inch by half-inch dimension, I should be able to get. Hold on. That's driving me fucking crazy. I hate high frequency tones like that. That are just like. High frequency tones. The worst. I'm trying to think what else I got. Well, I do have an AC unit that's pretty quiet. Anyways. Carpet pad is good for dampening. Oh. That's a good call. Interesting. I guess you would probably just want to make sure that wherever the carpet pad is, that it's shielded from any forge scale that might be coming off the steel that you're forging on. Well, I feel like the steel is holding together quite nicely right now. I'm not super stressed anymore like I was about that end of the billet that was coming apart. Of course, we will see in the finished billet how well that actually did stay together. Okay, yeah, so the next step is to press down to 1.5 inches. Figure out which one of these. Turn this off. Where's my 1.5 inch space? I have all kinds of Damascus laying around the shop, so they end up becoming stop blocks. Yep, it's 1.5 inches right there. Alright, this is going to be my spacer. What's this? I have another stop block, also known as, that is 1.25. That is way under. Okay, so we want the 1.5 inch. Actually, I'm going to add just a thin shim because dimensionally, once the material cools, well, that's right at 1.5. So I'm actually going to get a little bit thicker. 1/8 of an inch or 1/16 of an inch. The material I find, especially when I'm forging down to these dimensions, like 1.5 inches or whatever, it loses about 30 thousandths of an inch once it cools off, which is about a 32nd of an inch. So I try to account for an extra 1/16 of an inch. So what that accounts for is 1/32 of shrinkage and another 32nd of forge scale getting cleaned off. So anytime I have a dimension that I'm trying to work down to, I add at least another 1/16 of an inch. So that once the steel's cool and once the steel's clean, it's actually at the dimension I want it to be. Okay, I'm gonna get this in here. That steel should be pretty dang hot again. Some of you may be asking, why is he using just flat dies? Sometimes you want to use drawing dies, sometimes you want to use flat dies. I want to use flat dies for this though because I want that material to, right now the sides are like this, and if I use drawing dies, they're not going to really change this direction, but it will change height wise and it'll draw out that billet. But if I use flat dies and compress it, it's instead of the steel moving linear or with the length of the billet, it'll also move transversely across the width as well. So once it's compressed, when I hog down on it, it's gonna go burp. It's gonna kind of bow out, or pooch out on the sides to create kind of a barrel shape, kind of like this bearing. You can see the line on the edge isn't perfectly flat. It's a little bit bowed. So I want to create this upsetting effect that will cause the steel to go from being straight sides to a little bit pooched out or barreled out, so that I'm getting a little bit of width, because I want that width. I'm going to try to set the camera up so that you can see that happening. When I do it. Okay, going as planned, because I had to do that work to correct the billet, I'm actually not going to be able to re-square it and still have a decent, because I've only, at this point, I've only forged it down to a square bar. It was like the only thing, like the first step after setting the weld was just reducing it down to a square bar. 2 hours later, we're finally there, okay? Did have some troubles along the way. But for this pattern, it's supposed to get re-squared, forged on the bias, and then forged on the bias again. And by the time I forge it on the bias a second time, it's gonna be way too small. So, what I'm gonna need to do is shift gears with this pattern. It's not what I wanna do, but unfortunately I think it's what needs to happen. And so what I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna forge this bar on the bias, but now I'm gonna be making S's. We are not gonna be making the feather pattern. Don't worry, I'll figure out a new pattern. We'll course correct. And this is sometimes what you gotta do. It's gonna be a cool pattern, I'm sure of it. I just hope that people can be patient as we work through this. So the next step is going to be forging on the bias to make an S-bar. And I'll draw that out actually right now, because that means a whole lot of nothing when you're not as familiar with the process. So let's see. Where'd my drawing go? We're gonna forge on the bias. So set the weld. I just realized it's all backwards. Anyways, set the weld, forge it to square bar, which is where we're at finally, after a bit of correction and fixing and welding. And then we're supposed to forge on the bias to get the rate to see where. We are not doing that anymore because this material is no longer viable for this process, unfortunately. So, because it's gotten way too small. Normally, I can forge the material on the bias and it'll still be like 2.5 inches. Or sorry, 2 to 2 1/4 inches. Right now, it is only at 1.5 inches. So by forging it on the bias, it's gonna reduce it down so small. It's not gonna fly. It's not gonna work. So we are now going to shift gears and make an S-bar. S-bars are incredibly flexible elements that you can use in your Damascus movie. Sorry. So I'm gonna try to set you right beside me so I can draw this. Oh god damn it, it's still backwards. Right? Yeah, it is backwards. I can't really turn this around. Sorry, I'm gonna do some awkward shit just to try to figure out how to get a better angle for this camera so I can show you more accurately what the hell I'm doing. Let's flip this camera around. Okay. Now we're using the back camera. We're gonna zoom in. Okay. Okay. So, weld one. We have our stack. We reduce it to a square bar. We're still going to turn it on the bias like up here. on this example up here, we were going to forge on all 4 corners to get it to re-square. We are not worried about re-squaring. We're only going to forge it in one orientation right here. And as we shove that down, I'll draw an intermediary step. It'll start to create kind of like a flattened hex kind of shape. With this center line right here, that line will now start to flow like this, and everything else around it will do the same. And then at a certain point we'll true up the ends, and that will give us the rectangular bar that has these S lines going through it. That will be our S mark. Okay. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Turn you guys around here. Put this damn thing back. Why is it whenever I try to do a presentation, shit seems to go sideways? It's like without fail. It almost always happens. Things do not go to plan. Why? Why is it so hard? Why can't things just work out? Okay. Michael Powell is saying that I missed a lot with this live. Where you at? Where are you at with this build right now? Are you still in the first stack? Yeah, Michael Powell. I am still in the first stack, unfortunately, because a couple things went sideways. The handle almost fell off. And then apparently there was a faulty weld on the far side of the steel of the billet. And so it started to come apart while I was forging. So I had to do some corrective forging to straighten it back out, which caused me to reduce the bar down farther than I wanted it to. So that's where we're at. Not ideal. Okay, so this bar is almost up to a decent temp. I'm actually going to put the long dies in, I just realized. I'm going to put the long dies in and start that forging on the bias. Again, I'm going to take it and I'm going to rotate it counterclockwise, 45 degrees. And, yeah. And forge it. Sorry, my brain's not fucking working right now. Maybe I should not try to talk so much. It is not playing out super well. I'm gonna put you guys here. Put the flat dies on. Not the flat dies, the long dies. I use these long dies just to help establish the flat down the length of the billet. And now I'm going to pull these off, and just work with the flat dies. Okay, well that was fun. And it looks like the live stream stopped. Oh, it picked up. Sorry about that. My phone got overheated. So I guess we got to be careful about that. Let's see. So at the end there, you saw me starting the forge on the edges of the billet. So I'm going to be doing the same thing. I'm going to have the camera just a little farther away. I wish I can zoom in on this thing. All right. I'll just back this thing up and zoom in so you can still see the action. Again, and now the billet's starting to get a little almost too long for the forge, so I'm going to be working the billet kind of in halves. Okay. All right. That's going well. Now it's just a matter of drawing the bar out. Something I'm doing in particular is I'm forging very gently against the height of the bar. Take a look at the bar right here. So it definitely has some dimension. So it's basically 2 by 1 or 1 by 2. Obviously you can see those round corners. I want to forge it down so those are nice and sharp. But the way I'm going to forge it down is going to be very intentional so that I'm getting very particular activity in the steel. So by very gently on the edge, I'm only compressing force just through the little bit of a height. But then on the flats, I'm forging very hard, just causing the material to kind of push back out again. And so I'm going to kind of do this movement to kind of create this curvature in the S, to try to accentuate the S. The question is if I can do it or not. Since everything else seems to be going so smooth, we shall see. I have some AC blowing on me now. I don't feel so crazy hot. I don't need to weld anymore, so I'm actually going to take this hoodie off. So I can show off my Patterson Forge sweatshirt. Oh geez, look how sweaty I am. Maybe I won't take this. Spare you guys all the grosses. Anyways, my buddy Rich Patterson set me up with that sweet shirt. I'll just wait for the steel to come up. So what I'll probably, because I'm already seeing that part of the billet is too long for the forge, I'm going to really try to work it in halves. Just for ease of functionality. And actually, so I'll probably work the first half down. I'll probably work it down to maybe 3/4 by 1.5 inches. And then 3/4 by 1.5 inches. And then I'm gonna cut the old handle off the one side, or actually I'll forge a new handle onto the far side because the end of the billet is junk. And so what I often like to do is I will forge a handle off the back of the billet. So yeah, the end of the billet kind of looks like this. The end of that is not useful, but I can take basically about 1/2 inch of that down to about there. I can isolate it, and then I can forge this down into a handle. And now instead of attaching a handle, I have a handle that's forged out of the material. One, I kind of skip a step in a way. So instead of welding a handle on, I'm forging a handle on. So I guess that's kind of a push. But what's nice about it is it helps kind of lock this pattern, this material into place, at least at this end of the bar, so it's not really going to go anywhere. This is a chunk of gradient material. It's kind of hard to see. Oh, there you go. So you can see it's thick black that blends into thick silver on the other side, which blends down into the thick black. So it gradients across each other. I have a couple of those billets sitting around here. Okay. Let's get forging again. Pull this in. believe they're uploading right now. They might take a minute because they're uploading. Because I'm doing this through my phone. That's it's just gonna take a second. Steel's back in the forge, heat it back up. Great to watch me forge. Yeah, I was actually just thinking about it. I was like, oh wow, I just realized not a lot of people have actually seen me forge. Because I don't do a lot of live forging, Damascus forging demonstrations. And what's great, even better about this, Mike, is that I keep screwing things up. And so everybody's hopefully taking some insights from my screw-ups. Because it's happening. I'm screwing up. I was about to throw these mandarin, or these, whatever, clementine, mandarin orange peels away. But I remember when I was in Ireland, Fingal put citrus peels, or squeezed citrus, onto his oven. It's one of those ovens that just is burning all the time. I can't remember what it's called. It starts with an A. It's like Argo or something like that. I can't remember. But the whole, all it did, it heats up the peels. The citrus oils release, and it smells amazing. Yeah, chaos is happening. All right, steel's coming back up. I'm just gonna rinse, wash, repeat. I'm still working this half down. I'm gonna work it all the way down to my 1.5 by 3/4 before turning it around and working it from the other, or forging the handle off the end and working the other end of the billet. Now, all right. This is gonna be a big billet. Here we go. In the meantime, think of some questions you might have. Between heats is a great time to chat and answer questions. are we? We had some troubles, Mike, as I was starting to say. And so we are actually still in the first weld. I'm welding together some gradient material that I already had on hand with plate steel. And so we're really kind of technically in the first weld. This was what I was trying to do. Things went a little bit sideways. And so I think this plan is actually what I'm going to go back to, which is kind of this S-welded chevron pattern. And so even though I designed this material for can't get those damn things to stay on my head. I designed this material to make this little wing feather pattern. I don't think it's going to play out very well that way. So what I'm doing instead is adapting. A lot of, and some people watching this might not, right now or later, whenever, might be thinking, damn, that sucks. I don't want to make that mistake. Yes, and there's a lot to learn from the mistakes that we make, like I was saying earlier. And honestly, most of the pattern innovations that I've developed over the years have been from mistakes. It's me trying to figure out not only what I did to cause something to happen so that I can prevent it from happening in the future, so I can have more control over my material, but now I was left with this pattern element that was unusual and I had no idea what to do with it. So that's what I'm doing right now. Rolling with the punches and burning orange peels. They smell quite nice, actually. I'll tell you what. So, the pattern I'm going to be making now, it's kind of like the whale tail pattern, but actually, the whale tail pattern was an attempt at a mosaic approach to creating, I can't remember what the style of Viking braid this is. I can draw it. But I don't know what it's called. Mike, you might actually know. Here, I'll draw it up. Oh. All right. I'm gonna bring you over here again. So it's a kind of Viking braid that essentially, fucking Jesus Christ, there we go. It's like it's a kind of a center line. If I get my pen to work, motherfucker, fucking. Why is everything going fucking sideways on me today? Just want it to fucking work. I'm gonna have to draw it the old-fashioned way, down in my lap. Because apparently this pen doesn't want to write upward. Okay. So you have kind of a center line, and then first time I saw this style of Viking braid was on a sword by Jake Pounding, who's a sword maker out of, I think he's in New Brunswick, Canada, and he is fucking talented, I'll tell you what. He was the first sword maker that I discovered that made me interested in swords. Not only does he do just like an absolutely phenomenal job, he builds all these stories around the swords, or they're built like as replicas based off of stuff from stories or stuff from history. So anyways, it's just kind of a braid. And that's not a perfect illustration of it. But anyways, my idea is to basically divide it down the center line and then figure out how to create elements that create a similar activity. And so, playing with these S's, again, the whale tail was an attempt at trying to do this, but it was a failed attempt. It still made a cool pattern, it just didn't do what I wanted it to do. So, hopefully, this time around, we get something a little bit more interesting. Alright, working this just a little bit more. Isolate a portion of the end of the billet to make it to a handle. Forge out a handle and turn it around. how the end of this billet is super cruddy. So basically, I tried to isolate it where that crud ends. So I'm going to heat up the end, force out a handle. My goodness. What a day. I thought everything was going to go so great. Maybe that was my mistake. I thought everything was going to go perfectly smooth. Nope. Okay, so I'll just forge that out by eye, just into a rectangular bar. That'll probably be about probably about 1.25 by 3/8 or so. Yeah, I've started doing that because, using the ends of the billets as handles, because what I'll often do is I'll set up a billet and I'll weld it and I'll forge it out, and then it'll get to basically this. It's a big old billet. That's a lot of material to try to manage, so I cut the billet in half. Each of these guys is half of what was a gradient billet. So I forge it out until basically it doesn't fit in the forge anymore. And then I cut it in half. But this side is all messed up, and I'm trying to not spend a million years or make a career out of put a handle on this damn thing. So instead, I bring the billet up to temperature. It's half, because it's only half the original billet. It's heavy, but it's manageable. So I manage it long enough to be able to isolate the end of it to make a handle. So I'll look at it, this one, and I'll say, I can see right here is the bottom of the schmutz. So that's where I'll isolate it, and then that will become the handle for this side of the billet. And then, yeah. So that'll become the hand. This is plenty of material to make a handle out of. It doesn't need to be 6 inches long. It needs to be big enough for my tongs to hold it, right? And my tongs, the V-bit reins are only maybe 2 inches long, right? Maybe 1 3/4 actually. And so I just need enough material. It can even forge it to a square. You can forge it to a rectangle. Whatever you need to do. I just got bars of steel laying around. Okay, it's hot in there, so I'm gonna force this handle out. Let's see, switch you over here. That's the back side actually, just realized. Let's put you in the front. handle on the back side of that the billet. That's that. Yeah, so Udeus 5 is asking, what is the hearing protection? These are ISOTune Pro 2. Of course, that's backwards, but anyways, it's ISOTUNES is the brand. I like these. They have a lot of different styles. They have wireless earbuds and stuff. The problem with the earbuds, especially in a dirty shop, anytime I need to take them out, I have to find somewhere to put them. Either I'm holding them in my grubby hands, putting them in my dirty pockets, and then eventually put them back in my ear, and I don't like that. So, the reason I like the ear hook is if for some reason I need to take my earbud out, I could just hang it here on my ear, and my ear is completely clear. I can hear just fine, without having to put it in a pocket, without putting it anywhere weird and gross. And so these ISOTunes are pretty good. The battery lasts for a really long time. Probably lasts at least like a work day and a half, and that's like listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks and stuff like that. So, okay. I think what I'm going to do, because this live stream's starting to get long. Oh, David Singer. What's up, David Singer? And I know some people are just joining. But for the sake of being able to edit it and upload it in a meaningful way, I think... Well, what time is it? I actually gotta be done. So this is what we'll do. We're gonna go until 2 o'clock, and then wherever I'm at, I'm gonna stop, and we will have to pick it up tomorrow. More fun tomorrow. But hopefully by that time tomorrow, or by tomorrow, this bar will be forged out. I'll have it cleaned up. I will have it chopped up and restacked in some sort of interesting and meaningful way. That's probably stuff I'll film, but I won't necessarily live stream. But that'll be stuff that'll be on the Patreon. It's stuff that I need to film just to fill in the video of the process of the making of this pattern. So it started as what was supposed to be a pattern called Little Wing. It is no longer that pattern. So we are hoping to make it something else very interesting very soon. So like I said, we'll go until 2 o'clock. Then once 2 o'clock hits, I have to shut down the forge and everything. I gotta get out of here. I gotta go pick up some stuff. I'm doing sharpening this week. And for those in the Patreon, you've heard the conversation with our friend JB Librato. I still really am so thankful to have that chat with him about the sharpening business, and so and his input around it. And so I think it was a really great conversation and very helpful and insightful. He's got a lot of really good feedback, or I felt like I got a lot of good feedback from him. So anyways, I gotta go pick up those knives before the kitchen store closes. And I also have to run some other errands. I did not anticipate, I thought I would be done by now. But with a couple snafus in the forging process, I think we recovered, because actually this end that I just forged the handle off of, this was the end that was messed up earlier. And it looked solid to me. Everything stayed together. So, and actually isolating and making a handle is kind of a nice way to bottleneck that material so that if there are cracks and stuff at the back of the billet, some funkiness at the back of the billet, if you're trying to prevent it from propagating into the billet, a great way to stop that from happening is by isolating the end of the billet, especially the far end, isolating the end of the billet and forging a handle onto it, or just bottlenecking it. Kind of like, it's like tying it off, kind of in a way. I'm gonna flip this billet. Part of the reason forging takes so long for me too is I'm actually running my forge at probably 200 to 300 degrees cooler than most people run their forges. Part of that is that I like to be familiar with this temperature range because this is the temperature range that you would be forging stainless in, which is around 2100, 2150. So that also causes things to take a little bit longer to heat up, or a little bit slower to heat up. So everything just takes just a little bit longer. So I'm just realizing I should probably get my spacers set up in the dies because the steel's almost up to temp. The first process is going to be to squish the billet down on the flats, and then work on the edge. just got back from a Tomahawk forging class down in Dragonfly. I think that's what I saw. I can't remember if it was Gabriel that was posting about there being a Tomahawk smelt going on down there. That's pretty rad. I've never been so hot as I was in front of the Japanese style charcoal forge. I believe you. Please tell me you treated it like a, what do they call them? Bichutan? Like the Japanese kind of like yakitori style barbecue. I would love for that. I would love to see that. A tiny tatara, the charcoal in it, and then you're cooking over the top of it. That would be way too hot. But anyways, so yeah, I started on the flats to squish the material wider, and then I gently worked on the edges to bring it back down in height, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get, because the steel already has kind of an S kind of shape into it, but by flattening it and then gently working those edges in, that causes that curvature to just be a little bit more exaggerated. Hopefully, it's not guaranteed. Fan charcoal sponsored charcoal and a yakitori grill. So close. What kind of charcoal is it that you guys are using? Is it like pine? Probably not pine. Pine would put off all kinds of gnarly. Well, I guess it's charcoal. I can't remember. I feel like it's some sort of softwood, isn't it? Not a hardwood. Oh, let's see where we're at. 15 minutes. No, we only could get oak. Gotcha. You might have been able to hear me, but couldn't see me. I was banging on the end of the other side of the handle of the billet. I thought the handle was about to come off, so I was like, oh, screw it. Why don't I just forge it off? But it's actually staying on there pretty good. So I guess I did a good job welding. Part of it came off, but not all of it. Pine apparently gets hotter and gets cooler faster, which they prefer. Interesting. Yeah, it's been a while since I watched one of those videos on YouTube about like a tatara and doing a steel smelt in a tatara. Looks like the steel is getting hot in here, actually. So get back over here, zoom in. remember which ones I watched. There's one, I think Yoshindo Yoshihara. He's a sword maker, right? I can't remember. But I feel like I saw a video. I've watched a couple really good what is it? Japanese sword making videos. It'd actually be very interesting to watch them again because I watched them when I first started making knives, and I'm sure there was a lot that I missed. And I'd be curious to watch them again to see what little things that you happen to catch in the videos that they don't maybe necessarily talk about, but you're like, wait a second, what was that? What was that? What are they doing there? Mike says, yes, he is the author of a book by the same name. Art of the Japanese sword. Yoshihara. Yeah. Oh, I was just remembering. I was down. Oh shit. 90 minutes. We're at an hour and a half. I was down in Portland yesterday. Because yesterday was National Knife Day, apparently. And so down at the Steelport factory, they had our friend Triple B, Sean. He did a sharpening competition. He did this 2 years ago. I was part of that. And there were a few makers there at that one. Who was it? I think it was Alex Horn, Jameson Chop, Dan Bittinger, myself, that went down and did the sharpening competition. And then the other guys were all professional sharpeners. So was that 4 makers, 2 or 3 professional sharpeners? I can't remember. This year there were only 6 contestants. And lo and behold, the professional sharpener won again. So 2 years ago, a professional sharpener named Stan won 2 years ago, and this year, our friend Matthew Coons, actually, he's part of the Patreon. He's based out of Portland. His knife sharpening business, and it's to the point sharpening, knife sharpening. He killed it. He freaking killed it. He had the best score on average. So basically, we sharpened a knife that was intentionally dulled. We sharpened another knife so the first knife was VG10. The second knife was Shirogami 1, whatever, the white paper steel. And then the third knife was actually the VG10 knife, dulled again and resharpened. And then we did best testing along the edge at 3 points for every knife, every round, and whoever had the best average overall throughout all 3 levels or rounds won the game, or won the sharpening competition. And Mr. Matthew Coons won fair and square. Holy shit, you are finally part of the chat after 3 years. What's up, buddy? I'm trying to salvage not huge mistakes, just making mistakes, because mistakes happen. And yeah, I'm almost done actually forging this bar. I started at 10:30ish, and I had the handle almost fall off. So at one point I had to weld the handle back on, or not back on, but to shore it up, to strengthen it. And then at another point, apparently I think there was a failed weld on the back side of the billet that I didn't notice after the first couple rounds of forging. And so it was like the third round, I was about to start forging it on the edges of the billet, and the end of the billet I could see it was open. There was a gap, and I was like, oh, and it was like a 1/16 of an inch gap, and I was like, holy shit, there's a failed weld over there. Fuck. And so I put the steel back in the forge. I went for a second long soak to age that weld after setting that weld again. but I think it came together. Everything on this end of the billet, I'm looking at it right now, it's actually gonna be my handle. It's all solid, looks good, holding together. It's actually the other end that's kind of looking a little sketchy. But I'm almost done fucking around with it and forging it, so we'll call it good in just a second. Okay, so we're making S's. We were trying to make C's, but after all of that, we're not making C's anymore. We're making S's. But we're gonna make a cool pattern no matter what. I'm gonna bring you right here. All right. I'm going to do a little work to straighten the billet out. Then we're going to thermal cycle it, call it good. All right. Or normalize it, I guess. So I'm just going to bring it up. Actually, I'm going to turn the forge down. Forge way down. I'm gonna let it come up to temperature. flip it around and do the other side. Might do some straightening. I won't do it at full heat. I'll probably do it at dull heat. And then, yeah. And then I'll finish the normalizing cycle. I'll let it air cool. And then tomorrow, I'll start the day. I probably won't live stream this, but I'm gonna rip off all the forge scale, and then start measuring and cutting the billet and breaking it down and starting to get the second weld on. Okay. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's anything right now. I don't know. I'm gonna pontificate a little bit. I'm gonna think about this pattern and try to decide what we can do for making something interesting out of something that was a bit of a boo-boo. That's looking nice in there. Let's see. I'm gonna actually flip this baby around. I'm not trying to let this side the side inside of the forge. I'm not trying to let it come completely up to temperature in the forge. I want it to come up to a dull red first, so that I can do some slight straightening adjustments, because it's just by the tiniest bit. But I know that just with a little bit of heat in the press, I can get that straightened. And then I'm going to bring it up to temp. We're going to turn this forge off, and we're going to be done for the day. So this normalizing cycle, I think normalizing, typically you would hold at a high temperature for a longer period of time for normalizing. But anyways, essentially I'm bringing the steel up to a forging temperature just for like a minute. And then I let it air cool. And honestly, from there, I can cut that steel on it. Once the forge scale is cleaned off, I can cut that steel on a bandsaw like it's butter. And that's all I do to prepare my steel for cutting. I love it. Okay, we got a little bit of heat. I'm gonna get you guys set up. Let's do a little tap. Good. All right. Just gonna let this billet come up to temp. Okay, before we go, if anybody's got any questions, I'm here. Otherwise, I would like to reiterate, there are a lot of changes happening to the Patreon. Even though this live stream is publicly available, Patreon also, and like the complete video will probably honestly only be about 20 minutes to half an hour, even though I've been forging for the last 4 hours today, basically 3.5 hours. And then, but that'll incorporate not just this phase, but the next phase as well. I don't know. I had to do a long form video that has the whole thing start to finish in it, or to do things a little more episodic. I'm thinking what I'll probably do is both, honestly. I'll build it so that, or I'll edit it so that it can be episodic. So I'll edit one and it'll be just a standalone. But then I'll make one final cut that is all of them together in one place. Again, that whole video will only be maybe 20 or 30 minutes. Of course, I say that now and then my brain goes, or because you don't shut the hell up, it's probably going to be like an hour and a half. So, yeah. That's just how my brain works. I just talk a lot. I talk a lot. Now I'm starting to second guess myself if we should do the tile, or sorry, not the tile, but if we should do the chevron pattern, if I should try to do something else. I have another pattern idea that I think would be super cool, but it's definitely a lot more preparation. But when it's done, it's pretty fucking rad. I think it'll look pretty fucking rad. I guess, who knows? I'm not a very objective party, I guess. I don't know, I think it'll depend on what the end of this bar ends up looking like. Yeah. But then the live streams are also going to still be available. You just got to sit through the whole damn thing. And there's no editing, and there's no... I'll probably be doing some voiceover stuff, because probably... Well, one, while I'm forging, I'm not actually doing a lot of talking. I'm also going to cut in video of me doing grinding, cutting, or measuring, chopping, stuff like that. And then, so that's what the final videos will be. So some of the stuff that's in the live stream, or that's going to be in the final video, won't even be available through live stream. Also, all of this, the whole point of doing any of this is that I've been wanting to make a book around pattern welding and my understanding of pattern design and pattern and material movement. I've been wanting to do that for a long time, and I have not been able to do that. I haven't found a way to do that, and I think that this could be a great way. So basically kind of modeling it after Larry Thomas, where he had his Patreon, he was writing these articles for Knife Steel Nerds, and then he compiled all those articles into a book. And so my thought is to kind of do a similar thing. Make this content, create the diagrams around the different patterns and processes and techniques, and then compile them into a book of some sort. It's probably not going to be a reference book as official and fancy and educational, I think, as Larry Thomas's. It'll be a little bit messier. It'll probably look a lot more like you're peering into my journal rather than a reference book of any kind. Mike, what do you got there, Mike? Freak Veringa. He does episodic full videos, and at the end it has an edited general view / YouTube session. Yeah, send me a link. I'd be interested in seeing that, Mike. Okay, billet's up to temp on this side. Call that good. I'll let this guy air cool. Oh God. We're gonna call it a day. Let's see. Back to the top. All right. Here's our steel. 1.5 by 3/4. Quite a lot of steel here. This is gonna make a very cool pattern of some sort with plenty of material. So I look forward to it when I clamp this up. But otherwise, we're gonna call it a day. Thank you guys, everybody, for sticking it out with me. It was a tricky one. This is gonna be a learning curve. They're not gonna be smooth. It's gonna take some time. We'll get there though. We'll get there. Till then, talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.